Wow, this podcast has made it to double figures, both in episode numbers and audience size. From the very beginning, I've wanted this podcast to be of help to people, and now I wouldn't assume that you've had time to listen to or watch every single episode, although, hey, don't let me stop you. But what I've done for this episode is I've taken some great bits from previous interviews and packaged them together around a couple of themes. The first one is skills that people in the radio industry pick up that would make them indispensable in other workplaces.
Yeah, it's all just telling stories.
Having a sense of curiosity.
That whole focus on the people at the other end of the thing stood me in good stead in a role like that.
Which is gold on the ceiling when it comes to marketing.
Absolutely key.
And the other theme is upsizing those skills with continued learning.
Took this acting class.
A course on HTML, websites.
Did a course on video editing.
Fell in love with it.
Something I still use today.
Old skills, meet new skills. May your best years be ahead of you. I'm Andy Marr, and this is Off Mic, live after radio. Let's start this one by talking about the skills that radio people pick up. Matt Whittemore is a former announcer and program director who then moved to TV. After 8 years as part of Australia's most successful breakfast TV program, here is how Matt used his skills and his contacts to move away from broadcast media.
8 years on a morning breakfast show is a lot. Like the need, like you're doing 3.5, 4 hours of live television every day, and you need to constantly come up with stories and content and people to talk to, and you need to come up with good ones because we were the number one show in the country and we needed to stay the number one breakfast show in the country. So it was relentless and it was intense, but it was when it was great, it was great. One of the producers I worked with at Sunrise, who I got along particularly well with, she made the move over to government. So I was talking to her a lot about her new role. Positions kept coming up and she kept sort of saying, there's a spot here if you want it. And I said, I just want to do one Summer Olympics. 2020, unfortunately, it was a COVID Olympics, but I got to go to Tokyo in 2021 and cover those games, and that was extraordinary. And that was like, okay, I've done a Summer Games.
So, what does a day look like for you now, apart from hopefully a bit more of a sleep in than you would have gotten with Sunrise and breakfast for all those years?
Oh, public holidays. I don't like, if people in the media are watching this podcast, I don't know if this is for people in the media or people outside of it, but public holidays are amazing.
Yeah.
I'd never had them before. Sundays, weekends. No, my family's enjoying seeing me again, which is nice.
Yeah.
They're lovely. Yeah. I'm spending a lot more time with them and they seem really, really nice. Yeah, it's all just telling stories. So government, not as creative and not as fun stories most of the time, but again, it's telling stories and just basically going over the fence and working in media from the other side. My day is generally, you're monitoring, radio in the morning. You get your regular media reports in, so your first hour will be just going through what's in the papers, what the radio stations are talking about. Maybe doing a scan around and listening to them, making sure that no one's talking ill of any department that you're associated with. The biggest challenge I guess I found working in government was it's so collaborative because it's government, because it has to be right. When I was on the broadcasting side of media, I was very much of the attitude, ask forgiveness, not permission.
Yep.
In government, no, that's not a good way to make things happen.
Is it much more slow moving than broadcast media, or how's the pace go for you?
Not some days. Some days are insane, just like broadcast days. If you've got a crisis or some sort of emergency, or you need to turn around a package or a program, and again, the collaboration still exists. So you're reaching out to people, getting their input, pulling it all together and trying to push it out as quick as you can. So there are still moments of crisis. Not as many as in television and radio, thankfully, but I do still enjoy those little days where the adrenaline levels are elevated, because that's kind of the thing you love about TV and radio. It's that, it's the nervousness, it's the energy, it's the adrenaline.
You need a little bit of stress just to tickle that chakra.
You do. Yeah. It's good for you. You're alive.
Some of the things that Matt said there about telling a story were also echoed by another guest, Walter-Gerrard, who was also a radio announcer and program director. These days, Stephen works as a marketing manager for a tech consultancy, but his last radio job was writing creative for Melbourne talk station 3AW.
I was having a lot of fun writing and doing campaign strategy. However, I had 10, 15 clients in rotation at any given time. And I just thought, I wonder what would happen if I could dedicate all of this strategic thinking, execution planning, and creativity to one company.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got another best mate. He just happens to be one of Australia's, preeminent genius cyber and information security doyens. I don't like using the word freak, but the guy is insanely good. And he said, I've got an idea. And I went, this is going to be good. And he told me what his idea was for a piece of technology and what it could do. But I don't know how to market it. I need a marketer. And I was like, do you want me to? And he said, yeah, that's kind of why I brought it up. I was like, all right, good. No problem. And I was like, this is something that I could contribute to quietly. And so we started up the company together. And in 12 months, we were bought out by another company who also didn't happen to have a marketing plan to lean on at all. So I sussed them out and it looked and sounded good. So I was a foundational ELT member of that company.
ELT meaning?
Executive leadership team. There's a wanky acronym. This is the world in which I live now. Yeah. But it was great. We made a name for ourselves and a footprint, and I was doing content and I was being creative and writing. And it just dawned on me that all of the skills that I had spent 20 years developing in radio and a little bit of TV are all directly transferable to a panoply of other industries. I want to say every other industry, but I don't have enough experience in every other industry. But in every industry I've gone to since or had any involvement in, even in any other contract work that I've done under my own name, it's all transferable. If you are naturally curious, you'll figure a lot of stuff out. And when a company says we need a plan to make some noise in the market and increase our share of voice, then you go, I'm your person. Because I know how to write, present, host, edit, build, strategize. I know how to look at an audience. In radio, you're obsessed with people's behavior because you're trying to find a way to pull on their earlobes from the speaker that's somewhere near them. And so you have this real kind of investigatory, journalistic bone in your body that actually cares to find some stuff out, which is gold on the ceiling when it comes to marketing in any other arena outside of radio.
I love what Stephen was saying there, picking apart the skills from radio that he still uses and holding them up to the light for all of us to see. There was a similar moment with best-selling novelist Mary Lou Stevens, who told us about the skills from radio that she still uses.
To be in radio, you having a sense of curiosity, I think, is absolutely key. Because, well, with the ABC in particular, you're asking questions for a living. And for those interviews to really work, you need to be genuinely curious, and I always am. And that curiosity certainly moves across to writing, and especially as I write historical fiction. So there's a lot of research, and I love the research. Anyone who writes historical fiction loves the research. In fact, we can get a bit bogged down in it and go down rabbit holes, but we always love it. So that curiosity has certainly come in handy. I've got a new publicist at HarperCollins, and we were having our first little meeting on Google Teams or whatever it's called. And he said, so what about radio interviews and other interviews and podcasts? Are you going to be okay with those? And I went, I worked in radio for 20 years. And he went, oh, gosh, that's right. Sorry. So when it comes to doing the publicity for a book, of course, all of that stuff. I remember interviewing an author. It was her first interview, and she was so terrified. And I had to do a pre-record, and I had to coach her through everything. And I just kept saying, editing is our friend. I will make this sound good. I will fix this. But when I get interviewed, it's like people just, the interviewer, and we're live on radio, and they will just relax because I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing.
So Matt and Stephen valued communication skills, and Mary Lou valued curiosity. Let's look at one more asset that radio people have. Here's former program director Geoff Fisher talking about a gig that he had that I didn't even know existed, helping employees of Government Department Services Australia.
Huge organisation, 30-odd thousand people at that stage. The people on the ground in, Centrelink offices and those types of things in, Port Hedland or Moree or wherever. When a change came through the system and they walked in on a Monday morning and the whole login screen to help customers had changed and nobody had bothered to tell them that it was happening, that was a problem. So my team became the interface between the big change projects and the people on the ground who stuck their hands up and said, we want to help make this better. And we helped to sort of, I suppose, put that glue together.
Was there anything in radio that really helped you in the change agent role?
It's all about people. Programming a radio station or being on air is all about people. Ultimately, you're working in a format and you've got your scheduled breaks and you've got all that. But that whole focus on the people at the other end of the thing stood me in good stead in a role like that, because the people at the other end were ultimately the people in the Medicare office or the Centrelink office or whatever. They were the customers. But in between, there were some really important people in the agency who were frontline staff dealing with it all. Or they may have been on the end of the call centre phone, and making their job harder slows the whole system down and makes it worse for the people who are ringing, that sort of stuff. So I keep coming back to it's always all about the people.
So there's some of the skills that radio people pick up along the way. But in a few of the interviews we did, the guest also picked up on the importance of continuing to learn. Let's go back to Geoff Fisher for a sec.
While I was programming 104.7 and Mix 106.3, I went back to uni. I was lucky enough to get in as a mature age student and was able to go straight into a graduate program because I had 7 years of relevant management experience. So I got in and did a grad cert in management and then followed that on with a graduate diploma in business administration. I didn't know what I needed it for, but I knew that it would be really important. And I actually enjoyed the learning process. I enjoyed that study, and my first time around when I was sort of 18, 19 years old trying to be a uni student most of that was done in the pub, and that didn't work so well, I found out. So I hadn't enjoyed that one very much at all, but I actually enjoyed it as a mature age student to come back and learn that planning that I didn't know what I needed it for, but I needed to get some form of qualifications helped set me up for that next stage, and that ability to go and get into a public service job, which gave me the experience I needed in government to then go on and, eventually become a partner in a consulting firm. Every experience is built upon the last one, and I've taken a bit out of my, last job and last careers into the next career and the next job.
Here is business owner Kerryn Marlow on what the first steps away from radio and back into learning looked like for her.
I think I got a job at an accounting firm. Also, in the interim, I did a course on HTML websites, because that was starting to become a thing. And
right.
I did a course at Monash University that taught me how to write HTML code, something I still use today. And it saved me thousands of dollars because I can always do my own websites and stuff.
Yeah.
The accounting firm, I met someone who wanted their website done, and she gave me some money up front, and it kind of started from there. I thought, I'll do your website. And then I hit the phones. I picked up a couple of clients doing email marketing for like a Melbourne restaurant. So I sort of got into that web world, and then one client asked me if I could get a marketing list for email. And from there, I said, yeah, of course I can, not having any idea what they were talking about. But I got one and I became a list broker, so a data broker.
The old saying goes, luck is where preparation meets opportunity, and it certainly applies in Kerryn's case. Video editor and YouTuber Alex Dalrymple also picked up a few skills that prepared him for the adventures that came his way.
I had started dabbling with a little bit of video production. So I took myself off to Afters and did a course on video editing. Ended up getting a little bit of work at sort of a paid internship at Showtime, the Showtime movie channels. And I was making a couple of movie promos. So it was effectively making movie trailers.
How many of them started with In a World?
In a World. Yeah, trying to avoid every cliche possible this summer on Foxtel. And then an internal role at ARN came up for a video producer. Before I knew it, I was saying goodbye to Jonesy and Amanda and taking the lift down to level 1. And so I managed to launch my video career by staying in the same industry, which was quite lucky.
Someone else who kind of started his video career while in radio is filmmaker Matt Schichter. Now, last time I saw Matt on social media, he was at the Cannes Film Festival taking a meeting on a yacht. He's a nice guy. I really hope things turn around for him. But back when he was in radio, he used to video the interviews that he did on his afternoon drive show in Edmonton, Canada. Let's pick up this story where that radio station flipped formats and Matt left the company.
What could be the next thing? How can I take the skills that I used in radio and move to the next thing? And the interviewing and the bringing the video camera in to record bands perform and do the interviews. I was like, okay, well, I really like doing that. How can I move that? And I started looking for jobs. And then Microsoft watched an interview I did with Angelique Kidjo, the African singer, at the Edmonton Folk Festival. And we're like, this is the guy to host our show. I was like, that's such a random interview to have chosen. Like, there are these huge bands. You chose this like obscure artist who I love, amazing singer. But that's the one that was the in to get me this job at MSN that allowed me to go basically travel the world for 3 years interviewing enormous celebrities, everyone from like De Niro and The Rock to Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift and Metallica, Sabbath. That was really cool. And then I got to produce that show and get the cameras, and I hired the crew and got to host, and I would do the sound in a little earphone on this side of the camera so you couldn't see it, but I was adjusting the sound because I didn't trust anyone else with sound at that point. I had to do it. And then that one thing led to another, and then radio just never happened again. From MSN, basically I moved to Los Angeles. At the time, I thought I was hot shit. I had just come from hosting this show, and I was like, okay, I want to start directing movies now. How can I do that? Well, you go to LA, you start meeting people, you hope to get meetings and eventually do stuff. So I was like, okay, I had saved up enough money from this show to go out there for a year, and let's just try my luck at this. And then a few months in, I was like, oh, it's hard to make friends in a city like this. Like, you got to drive everywhere. You don't know anyone. How can you make friends? Well, I could take like an improv class. A lot of people do improv classes. That was a thing at the time, especially. It was like becoming this thing that you kind of did. And so I took them at UCB and at Groundlings, and I took an acting class as well because I really liked the improv classes and started making friends. Took this acting class, fell in love with it. I had never acted. I had never done any high school plays or anything really like that, but it was like, why have I never done this? I don't want to do like an hour-long monologue, but like the waiter or the barista or the funny best friend that comes in and out, that I love. So then I don't know, that just started working. I started getting auditions. I got an agent and started doing commercials, and it never took off. I never went anywhere, but like I did make a living for 5 years just acting. And the cool thing now, looking back at it, is as a producer and director, I've been on so many other people's sets now and watched how they treat people, how directors direct, how cinematographers work. I got to kind of do my own little film school by being an actor and never leaving the set and just watching all these people work and being like, oh, it has taught me a lot to be able to do what I do now.
So that's a good look at some of the skills that people can take from radio into new careers. When I first started this podcast, I wanted it to be a light in the fog of uncertainty that's surrounding so much traditional media these days. Something else I wanted to do was share a few laughs and a few war stories. So in the next episode, which will be the final one for season 1 of this podcast, we'll talk about firings and f***ups.
Cart machines used to skip. You're listening to the coverage of 2TN's. Oh, no.
Now, before we wrap up, I've got a question for you. What are you getting more out of with this podcast? Do you like the career insights, or do you want to hear some more war stories? Let me know so I can give you more of what you want when we return for season 2. You can leave a comment in YouTube or Spotify. You can contact me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, or Blue Sky. Just look for the podcast name, Off Mic, Life After Radio. I'm Andy Marr. May your best years be ahead of you.